I don't think Bubs like that. Sorry, Bubs. I want to talk about the hard mode that kind of got soft announced, well, full announced, in the latest Baeclast with Chris Wilson. The reason why I say soft announced, I feel like in a lot of discussion I've seen at least about hard mode, is it's kind of worth stressing that the impression I got from the Baeclast was this is something that Chris personally is very excited about, but they don't really know what they're doing with the mode, if it is actually going to ship. Is it going to be something which is available to everyone for free? Is it something which becomes part of private leagues? Is it something that gets lifted in through planes, which will pop up in this video because we are recording in the garden? Apologies. And I think it's worth mentioning just how experimental of a feature this is. I'm very excited for the system, so I'm basically just going to be focusing on the positives, but I will leave a little bit of time towards the end of this video to talk about some of the valid concerns I think some people should have over the system. So I think the main thing which has me excited for hard mode, other than the fact that I would want to play it, is I think it's very obvious just how excited Chris was for the mode. It was very clear just from hearing him talk about it on Baeclast. It's something that he's really passionate about. Another thing which is really cool about that is in New Zealand around ExileCon, when me and Octavian got to go and hang out in the studio for a bit, you know, we were having a conversation, this concept of like a Chris Wilson director's cut kind of got bandied around, and it was really fun seeing how excited he was about this like wild notion like 2 years ago, to then how excited he was about this thing he's actually been able to mess around with and have fun with. And I just think that's really fun. I always find it fun to listen to people who are passionate about something, and that was just, I think it was evident just how excited it was for him. So that I think is great. As for like just a player thing now, I think it's really great, and this was the one thing that had me slightly worried initially. I thought, oh no, is this going to be a hardcore solo self-found only mode? Because that will very much limit its scope. But he said that no, if it's something they do, they want it to be available to hardcore players, softcore players, trade league players, solo self-found players, and I think that's an excellent thing. I've really enjoyed playing softcore solo self-found since Delve, I believe it was, which has been quite a few years now, and that was the perfect middle ground for me. I was someone who'd only ever played hardcore trade. I always found softcore trade just very off-putting. I didn't like how overly accessible everything was. I liked hardcore trade, but I did find myself getting frustrated sometimes when you'd get these really cool new boss fights coming in, and kind of like some of the tuning and the random one-shots. And there was this thing of like, oh, I really love this gameplay loop, and I normally play hardcore modes in a lot of other games, but it just felt a bit too punishing. And then when solo self-found became a thing, softcore solo self-found was the perfect middle ground for me, and I've had a lot of fun with Path of Exile since making that swap. And I think this could be exactly that for a lot of players. There are a lot of players who like aspects of solo self-found, or like aspects of hardcore, and they might like dabble in private leagues every now and again, but you know, it'd be too much of a leap to do that. Whereas I think a lot of people could have a lot of fun in a softcore trade hard mode, and I think that's excellent. And also, I would like to make an impassioned plea that if this is something that does happen, please don't tie it to private leagues. Let it be a free option for players. I think private leagues are great when it comes to running community events. I think it's really good for just like, we're just going to get a small guild together and have fun on that way. For that, I think it's fun as like just a private server, right? But I'm not a massive fan of it when it comes to a full-on game mode. It's like if you had to pay to play SSF, and I kind of feel like difficulty options on a basic level should just be available for free. That's just my opinion. So yeah, please don't make it pay to being paid. Another thing which I think is really interesting and very cool about it is this notion that, you know, you can have real tuning over more than just, oh, slightly bit more Monster Life. That was one of my disappointments with the private league system, is it released and it was a fairly bare-bones system. It still is a fairly bare-bones system. And I was always kind of hoping there was more development there. One of the first private leagues I ran was actually a white items only league, and I had so much fun that it was really good. The problem was is if you just do a blanket ruling of white items only, you end up missing out on a lot of very interesting league-specific modifiers and things which are actually like cool that you cannot get in it any other way. They might have changed that since then, but when I first played it, you just lost like all the delve items and stuff like that, for example. And a lot of things in Path of Exile are a lot of fun, but they kind of break if you just do blanket tuning. Another example is I used to play a lot of private leagues with 20% haste, and for the vast majority of the game, playing with 20% haste is fun and it actually makes the game a more fun experience. but it doesn't make certain boss fights a fun experience because they're tuned out having specific timers, and haste breaks those timers. And that's why I was so excited with the Act 1 retuning when they were messing around with monster speeds, because it was on a case-by-case basis, and that I think is super exciting for this hard mode or masochist mode or whatever it is they end up calling it in the end. I think another thing which is really important that everyone should be excited about is it's a great way for Path of Exile to make a game for the two very distinct player bases that are. So it was very clear with the 315 marketing, which Chris said was a mistake in marketing. They oversold how difficult they wanted to make the game going forward, and that was their failing. But it was also very clear that while the majority didn't like that, there was quite a large portion of the place as well who was very excited for that. I was part of that. A lot of content creators were part of it because, you know, we are people who've been playing all the way since the beta, and we came to this game because we wanted that D2 experience. And there's a lot of us out there, but by no means the majority. You know, we're probably like a fraction, 10% or something, if that. But it's great that for every player who was very excited and relieved when Chris announced that actually, yeah, the marketing was a mistake, the game isn't going to become super slow and grueling, don't worry. For all those people that were happy, there are a lot of people who were like, oh no, like, we were really excited for the direction of the game, and returning back to kind of like the beta roots and some elements, and then it's like, oof. But then this comes up and it saves all those people, which I think is great. And that's why I really hope there's something which does come forward, and that's why I'm making this video, just focusing on the elements that I'm really excited for, because so far most of the discussion I've seen about hard mode has been from players who wouldn't play it, saying, oh, I don't like this, I wouldn't play it. And it's like, well, yeah, okay. You know, it's like if they made a super juicer mode, I wouldn't play that, so I wouldn't be like, oh, this is awful, because I wouldn't play it, right? But anyway, so that I think is really good. I also think the thing which is very interesting about this whole thing is this idea Chris said of it could potentially in a way be used as like a soft testing ground for the live game. I think a good example of that could be this whole flask thing we've had. So going into 3.15, there was this big change on flask charge generation, the amount of charges that would generate from killing monsters and thing. If this becomes a real thing that goes, you know, live in the future, this could be in a great way to sort of act as a soft PTR for some of those changes. So you're like, should we do this? Is it too heavy-handed? We've got our internal testing and we've got the numbers, but like we don't have enough numbers. We need a larger player base to really talk about it over a prolonged period of time. You know, you can ship it into this with, you know, the proposed flask charge changes. Let it be in hard mode for, you know, a league or two. Then, you know, collect all the data, collect all the feedback, and be like, okay, we'll ship this into the main game at maybe a medium level. Or if it seems like actually this will fine, you can go into the full amount. And it could be a great way to avoid repeat situations like we had with 3.15, where suddenly you just get like 20 different heavy-handed things coming in all at once, and people are feeling very lost. So I think that is excellent, excellent news. Let's talk about some of the concerns, and these are concerns I raised in the interview itself. While they weren't my opinions, I thought it was important to put them out there. I'm sure one of the main concerns to people, because it's very much a niche game mode, is why are you spending time on this? Isn't this going to be pulling away development from the main game? Couldn't this lead to a bunch of issues? And I think that's a very fair concern. It's an immediate concern. It just springs to mind like, well, obviously this will cause problems down the line. Assuming they maintain best practices and assuming they maintain a good professional boundary from it all, it should be okay. It's very common in game development that you've got people who work there like 9 to 5, be it on Path of Exile or God of War or whatever it is they're working on, and then they go home and they mess around and they make their own just little indie games themselves for fun. You know, I regularly chat to quite a few of the programmers at GGG that I'm kind of friends with, and they always talk about these fun side projects they're making. And it very much seemed like that was the kind of approach that Chris has been taking with it. It's like he just messed around with for fun on the weekends. Maybe, you know, towards the end of the day, he might tune in a little bit the numbers now and again. If they can maintain that relationship with it going forward, then I think it should just be fine. And I guess also likewise to the people who are doing the tuning for Royale. As long as they can maintain that and they don't let it become their main drive over the main game, I think we should be good. So yeah, assuming that, you know, they act well and they act as most people do in the industry, then it should be okay. I guess another quite valid concern is further segregation of the player base. This was something which very much impacted hardcore trade with the introduction of Solo Southbound, and then further impacted it with the introduction of private leagues. And you know, you notice it very much as people notice it this league when you have the drop off, had a big impact on the trade economy. Whenever there's a big event or race or whatever, it can impact that stuff. And GG's spoken before about how they've kind of been wary of the whole racing, of the effect it can have on the parent leagues. So it'll be interesting to see how this could segment the trade league player base. I think one thing which is probably worth noting about that is, I would assume anyway, the majority of the players who would be interested in this mode are already kind of playing the optional game modes anyway. It would be a lot of the people already playing in private leagues, it would be a lot of people already playing in like solo self-found. And while I'm sure it would pull some people away from the trade leagues, especially hardcore trade more than softcore trade, it'll probably be more kind of like the segregated communities becoming more segregated rather than it pulling away directly from the main trade economy. I would assume. I don't know. I don't have their numbers. So I think that'll be something interesting to see. And I guess maybe finally, one thing which is, I think, really exciting is the impact this could have on content creation, both be it on YouTube, streaming, but also written guides. One thing which is very evident is when you get the YouTube channels that built around, we just got to go fast, or the YouTube channels built around, we're just going to be super experimental. I could definitely see a whole bunch of new content creators who get really excited about this new hard mode, and they just have a channel around hard mode content and hard mode guides and certain build guides and stuff. And I think that's really exciting. It's always fun when you get a big revitalization of the YouTube space. We've seen it a bit with like Havoc posting loads of content about Royale. And I just think that's very good for the fact that it could be a real positive thing for the community and building small sub-communities and kind of getting some good conversation together. So I think that's another very big positive that hasn't really been spoken about yet. So yeah, I can't wait to play it. I really hope it's something that becomes a thing, and I really hope it's something which isn't tied into a monetization aspect of it, because when you start tying monetization stuff, it always gets a little bit messy. But yes, I'm Tarke, have a good day, and I hope that this video helps kind of add some positives to the people who are kind of like, ugh, hard mode, why are they talking about that? But yes, I'm Tarke, have a good day. Bye-bye.